Hello and welcome to the Retirement Planning Podcast, your trusted source for navigating the path to a secure retirement. Your host and guide on this journey towards financial peace of mind is Darrin McComas. On this show, we'll delve into everything you need to know about retirement planning, from investment strategies and risk management to maximizing your Social Security benefits and crafting a resilient financial plan using the bucket plan financial process. Join me as we bring you insights from top financial experts, share stories of successful retirement journeys, and provide practical tips to help you build and preserve your wealth. Let's embark on this adventure together as we strive towards a future where retirement isn't just a dream, but a well-planned reality.
Well, welcome everyone to the Retirement Planning Podcast. I'm Darrin McComas.
And I'm Jason Fox.
Hey, today we have a special guest. We're thrilled. We have Jason Smith from Prosperity Capital Advisors and author of the Bucket Plan book with us today. So Jason, welcome to the show.
Great to be here and good to see you again, Darrin.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Well, for those that are unfamiliar, maybe first-time listeners, Jason, kind of walk us through how Prosperity Capital Advisors came about and your role today.
Yeah, so I'm the founder and the CEO of Prosperity Capital Advisors, and it really came about because it started with me, working out of my practice in the Cleveland area, and we were growing very rapidly, all by word of mouth, because we were doing this thing that nobody else was doing at the time, which was holistic wealth management, tying together the financial, the tax, the legal, the insurance, the Social Security, Medicare, everything into one comprehensive plan. And it was really unheard of at the time. And I'm going back, even 25 years ago. But when we started Prosperity Capital Advisors is just going on 15 years ago. And, we were growing quite a bit. And people, I think historically what you see is the ultra high net worth have gotten this. It's like a family office, right? Where they facilitate the sit down and the coordination and collaboration, between the CPA and the attorney and the investment professional and the insurance professional. And, but the bulk of people, right? The kind of middle class millionaires, hardworking American families, entrepreneurs, business owners, or just hardworking people that are saving money and trying to do the best they can for themselves. But predominantly, they were served by salespeople. And so, you got your investment guy selling stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. You got your insurance guy selling life insurance and annuities. You have your CPA selling tax returns and accounting services. And you have the attorney selling trusts and wills and, legal services, but they were all in silos. Yep. And nobody was collaborating. And I saw an opportunity to kind of bring that together with my background in kind of multi areas. I was able to kind of facilitate that. And it was awesome. Like I had all these, different people bringing me in and just growing by referrals. And I started getting a lot of speaking engagements and people asking me kind of how I was doing it and, why, what the whole model was about. And had a lot of financial advisors that were like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? And ultimately I said, you know what? We're doing some really special work for people. We're doing a great thing. And I think we could really spread this out across the country if we can help other advisors and train them on this whole methodology of the bucket plan, which is our holistic wealth management process. And so that's really what inspired it all is like, hey, let's grow the footprint. Let's help more American families. And that's why Prosperity Capital Advisors kind of how and why it was born. Yeah.
Yeah. Such a cool story. Well, I know that's what attracted me to Prosperity Capital Advisors, and it's that holistic approach. And then when you couple that with the bucket plan system and your book, I just love the bucket plan. And for those that are unfamiliar with it, Jason wrote a book a few years ago. Uh, to me, when I read this book, it just clicked. It made so much sense. It really simplified things. And I think that's what our clients appreciate the most is, while under the hood, under the surface, it can be very complex to our clients. The simplicity is something they really love. So kind of just give us, what was your inspiration for writing the bucket plan book? And
Yeah, Darrin, there's a quote, Leonardo da Vinci, that says simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And the thing is for most people, when you talk about financial, tax, insurance, legal, Social Security, Medicare, cash flow, budgeting, all this stuff. Whoa, right? It's pretty, it is very sophisticated, right? It's very complicated and it overwhelms people. And what I found many years ago is that when a confused mind can't make decisions, right?
Yeah.
And when people get overwhelmed, they typically shut down and they don't make a decision.
Yeah.
And no decision is a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a good one, And so it's called procrastination. Right?
Yeah.
And so you really want to have a plan. And so the funny thing is, I'm going to go all the way to back before the book.
Okay.
Just the three buckets where this whole concept, at least for me, where it was born. Now, I will say Harold Levinsky out of Texas Tech, he's also a financial advisor. Yeah, he's an older gentleman now. I believe he's still alive. But he is the first known, he's kind of the godfather of bucketing, right? He's kind of the first known source that ever talked about the concept of bucketing, right, in regards to financial planning. I did not find that out until probably 10 years ago, right? But I got to give the guy credit, right? He's the one, right? Like way before me, probably, near when I was still in elementary school in the 80s, he was talking about bucketing.
Yeah.
For me, where it all started was I used to see people in their homes many, many years ago, right? 20 plus years ago. And I used to have these laminated sheets, right? Where I would have, and on those laminated sheets, I would have the words now, soon, and later on them. And I would bring a pack of sticky notes in when I would meet with the people, usually at their kitchen table. And we would go account by account and we would write down each account on a sticky note. And then I would talk to them about, hey, do you think this is more now bucket money, kind of money you might need for planned expenses or emergency fund, or you just are okay with keeping it in the bank and sacrificing the rate of return that you could get if you invested it, but you just want it safe and you're going to need it to spend for whatever purpose. And like, let's talk about what account is what. And I would talk through the soon bucket. Well, then I'd go to the later. I said, now the later bucket's more like this is long-term money. This is money that may be inherited. This is money that you're willing to take on more risk to earn a higher rate of return. It's kind of 10 plus years. You're not going to touch this money. What would you consider later bucket accounts? And we take the sticky note and we'd write the account down and the balance and we put it over on that laminate sheet. And then the soon bucket would be any money that they felt like they would need for income or withdrawals, if any of that period between, the now bucket and the later bucket, right? That midterm money that they might need for income or withdrawals. And we would actually do the sticky note thing. And then as time evolved, I built an office and I had a big giant like dry erase board with the three buckets on it. And what I started doing is writing the different accounts in the boxes. There were boxes at the time, right? And I would write the accounts in each of the boxes and each above the box now, soon, and later. For whatever reason, I had Glenn and Judy, right, that were in with me that day. And I would total up the amount of all the accounts in each of the now box, the soon box, and the later box, and I'd write it at the top. For whatever reason that day, I circled each of the account balances at the top of the three boxes. And Glenn says to me, "Hey, Jason, I've always had a bucket list. I've never had a bucket plan." I'm like, "No way." That's amazing. So I go and tell my wife, she goes, starts working on getting us the trademark and all that for the bucket. And that's literally how the three buckets kind of came to be where they are today.
That's an awesome
Yeah,
story.
that's very cool.
Yeah.
With obviously your book, you wrote that kind of, led to the book eventually after the trademark and everything. Can you kind of you talk about in your book like market risk and interest rate risk and sequence of returns risk.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain those different details and how those kind of protect the retiree's assets in retirement?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, most people, Jason, have like a now bucket and a later bucket, right? That's what most people have. And they work and they save and they have some money in the bank and all the rest of their monies and their 401ks and brokerage accounts and whatever. And it's all in the stock market. And all of a sudden, they're about to retire. And then they have to, they go from the accumulation phase directly into the distribution phase. But they in many cases they miss a critical phase, and that is the preservation phase. Because we all go through like this money cycle throughout our lifetime. And the money cycle is accumulation, preservation, and distribution. And the accumulation phase is when you're younger and you're working and you're prepared for retirement and you're accumulating assets and you have a long time before you're going to need it. And that's the accumulation phase. And let's face it, if you lose money in the market, you got plenty of time to make it back. Plus, you're making more contributions. So you're not as worried about it in the accumulation phase. But as you start to get like 5, 10 years out from retirement, it's wise to preserve a portion of your assets in preparation for the third and final phase, distribution. Distribution to yourself in retirement, distribution to your family upon your passing. The biggest mistake people make is they go directly from accumulation into distribution and they never preserve a portion of the assets. That's really what the soon bucket's all about. And when they don't do that, and we've seen it like a few times throughout at least my career, 2000, 2001, 2008, even COVID had a quick little blip for a quarter where all of a sudden, what we're really trying to do too is we're trying to eliminate something I call freak out risk.
Yes.
Because people freak out and make bad decisions. And you don't want to do that. But also, what happens is if you haven't preserved a portion of your assets that you can draw on for income and withdrawals throughout the first phase of retirement, you subject yourself to sequence of returns risk. And sequence of returns risk, in its simplest form, really or definition, is it's where you're forced to sell out when the market's down because you don't have another choice. You just retired and you need that money for income or withdrawals. You're forced to sell out and you sell at the low, and now you can never make that money back. And it can be pretty devastating to a portfolio, as you guys know.
Yeah.
So that's really the premise of why the three buckets exist. And then in the book, I started out with the truth. It's a true story, right? This is a parable, which is a true story about, a couple that I took through the bucket plan, Jerry and Irene, which Jerry and Irene is actually my mom and dad's name. My dad passed away a few years ago, rest in peace. But to change, change names, change, information when I wrote the book. But anyways, in the book, I start out with the story of Irene coming into my office, right? After Jerry had passed away very unexpectedly, right? And I remember this, I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. And, she's sitting across from me. And we, of course, they had a full bucket plan. Everything was all, buttoned up. And we had just finished it within a year before that. And like I said, Jerry had passed away unexpectedly, and she came in And after the funeral and everything, and she was sitting, we had a round conference table in the room we were in, and she was sitting kind of across from me, and the dry erase board is over here to her left. And I just wrote out all her accounts, and I showed her her plan, and basically showed her where we had set things up where, she did have an annuity that would provide her income for the rest of her life as long as she lived. And so she had total peace of mind, and we were able to really continue the income that they were accustomed to as a couple throughout the rest of her lifetime. She had no risk of running out of money. Everything was all taken care of. We had life insurance, and it paid off the mortgage on the house. So actually she got a bump in lifestyle spending. Um, and, I showed her the whole thing, which she was aware of, because we always make sure the husband and wife sit through the process together. Because as you guys know, it's so educational and it's so important to get them on the same page. And previous to this, she had never had she had no clue what was going on. And I remember when I met, his name was actually John. I remember when I met John, and he was insistent, nah, she doesn't need to be involved. Gail doesn't need to be involved. And I was like, man, she really needs to be. It's just so important that she has clarity and peace of mind in case or when something happens to you. And we had no clue it would happen so soon, just a year later. And so I showed it all to her, and then I kind of, I looked over, because I'm looking at the board, and I'm explaining everything. And I look over to her, and she's looking down at the desk and not, just looking straight down. And it felt like an eternity. And then, probably, I don't know how long it was, but it felt like forever. She looks up, and there's tears just streaming down her face. And she's like, I'm going to be okay, aren't I, Jason? And wow. And just instinctively, we both stood up, and she gave me just this unbelievable bear hug, just small moment. But it was so emotional. I mean, I'm emotional right now, just remembering it. And literally the next morning at 5:30 a.m., I was at Starbucks starting to write this book, because I couldn't sleep that night. I'm like, man, I got to share this. And this is too important to not share with other people. And that's, yeah.
Absolutely. That's why we do this, right? Is to have that kind of impact on people's lives.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of that holistic wealth management piece, that protection planning. And I think especially for us guys, we want to make sure our spouses are protected, in case, one day we're not there. We don't want them obviously left high and dry. But what are some other things, you've talked about bucketing the now, soon, and later with their assets, and, how the protection planning is huge. What are some other components that you bring in with the holistic wealth management that you think are important?
I think a big blind spot that people have, Darrin, and I know you know this, but that later bucket, right? You see the words, right? Long-term growth, right? But the legacy planning piece. And see, what a lot of people don't realize is, for a husband and wife, when one spouse passes away, income typically goes down, right? They usually lose a check, right? It's all about checks, and they usually lose a check, right? Or maybe even two checks. Could be pension reduction, could be Social Security, whatever. So income goes down, but it's a double whammy. Income taxes go up. And most people don't realize this, right? That when one spouse passes away, you go from married filing jointly to a single filer, and all the tax brackets shrink. So all of a sudden, you're climbing into paying substantially higher taxes as a single person. Your standard deduction gets cut, the brackets all shrink, and all of a sudden it comes tax time, and you're blown away because you had no clue that you were going to get hit with a big, huge tax bill that wasn't coming. Most advisors are not planning for that, right? Most advisors are not taking this holistic approach and doubling down on the importance of tax planning and tax management, because and we all know the saying, right? It's not about what you make, it's about what you keep. And so that double whammy, and when I talk about legacy planning is not just for the kids. Most of my clients will say to me, listen, Jason, my kids are raised. I did my job. Whatever's left is left, right? I mean, I don't want to say most, but a lot of them feel that way, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And so, what they don't think about or realize is that when this one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse needs to have good planning in place. And that's what legacy planning is also for that surviving spouse. So, income going down, taxes going up, you got to plan for that.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what we do is as part of the holistic wealth management process.
You've obviously just alluded to tax planning being a huge part of what we do. And you've also written about, the tax trilogy. Can you go into a little more detail about that and how we kind of handle those different situations?
Yeah, I mean, the tax trilogy, the way I like to explain this, like, because people can understand it, wrap their mind around it, is it's kind of like building a house, right? Because tax planning, it's tax planning, tax or management, and tax preparation. So that's why it's called the tax trilogy. So let's talk about each one. Tax planning is kind of like if you want to build a house, you're hiring an architect, right, to build the blueprint. And, that's really what tax planning is. It's like building the blueprint. Tax management is like building the house, right? And then tax preparation is like having the building inspector come in and sign off on the good work that was done.
Right.
And so that tax trilogy is such a core component of true holistic wealth management. You have to tie the investments, the insurance, and the taxes, if nothing else. Now, you layer in all the other stuff, the estate planning and the Medicare and Social Security, super important too. But just simply the coordination of your investments, insurance, and taxes is a game changer, right? So that's how we kind of explain the tax trilogy. And this was a visual that we created many years ago. And it was funny, it started out as buckets, and then everybody got confused. Like the pre-tax would go in the now bucket, and the
Oh,
post-tax would go in
yeah.
the soon, and tax advantage later. I'm like, no, let's turn these into funnels. So and what's nice about it is like it actually makes a lot of sense because as you're filling your buckets, you want to strategically choose how much money is being funneled through pre-tax money where you're able to take a tax deduction. You're not paying any tax on that income. Take a tax deduction to have it go in there tax deferred. But as you guys know, it's taxed at the most highest tax, right? Ordinary income when it comes out.
Yep.
That's traditional 401ks, IRAs, etc. and other qualified plans, 403bs and so on, thrift savings. Post-tax is where you say, no, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and pay the tax on this, and then I'm going to invest it. And because I don't want to defer all that tax liability for the future and pay it all in ordinary income. So post-tax is like, okay, you take that after-tax money, then you invest it, and then you're going to pay some tax as it grows throughout the years. But then ultimately, when it comes out, in many cases, it ends up you're not getting hit with a big tax bill like you would on the pre-tax money. And then the tax advantaged, or in many cases, can be like tax-free money. And so, because you put the money in there, so Roth accounts, HSA accounts, a lot of people know cash value life insurance. It's where you put the money in there post tax, but then the money all grows tax deferred, and then you can pull it all out tax free as long as you follow the rules. And I think another big mistake or blind spot that people make is they don't think about the fact that they can fill their buckets strategically year in and year out. They can make decisions of how they funnel their money, right? And what they put their money into or what tax status they give it, like Roth accounts, like HSAs, etc. And then when the buckets are filled, right, Then at that point, you have another decision when you go into, so that's accumulation, you're filling the buckets. When you go into distribution and you start drawing out of the buckets, you have the same opportunity to kind of like turn the spigot on a little heavier over here, a little lighter over here, right? Depending on what tax bracket you're in, if you're single, if you're married, like if you're still working, if you took Social Security yet or not. All these things factor in, and you can really take control over your tax management and over what you're actually paying in tax, as long as you've allocated an appropriate amount of money within these different tax qualifications.
Yeah. And that's the word that we're trying to spread to our clients and to the people that we work with at seminars. Is everyone preaches diversification, right? And I think everyone agrees, have a well-diversified portfolio. The tax diversification to me is a huge thing that is missing in most people's plans. Either their advisors aren't talking about it or they're trying to do this on their own. And if you wait till retirement and everything is in that pre-tax funnel, there's not a lot of things we can do outside of Roth conversions. And they're just kind of handcuffed to Uncle Sam, right?
Yes.
I think just being well diversified, and to me, starting earlier. Don't wait till a year or two before retirement. The sooner you have that plan and start filling these different funnels, the more control you have in retirement. And
I mean, as Ed Slott, who's a famous CPA that you're familiar with, Darrin, he says when you're putting all your money into pre-tax and you're not diversifying, it's like you're building up a tax time bomb that eventually is going to go off in retirement or eventually when you pass away on your spouse. And this ties into the whole legacy planning for the surviving spouse. You just have to plan. You have to make all these preparations, and the sooner you get going on it, the better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, as we wrap up today, Jason, if there's one key message you would want every person to take away from our conversation today about retirement planning, what would that be?
You don't know what you don't know, right? You might have a financial advisor right now that you have a fantastic relationship with, and everything's great, and they know about your kids and your grandkids and all these different things. But the reality of it is, are they talking about all this stuff? Do you have a bucket plan? Do you have this level of tax management and planning being put in place? Is there a coordination between the tax professional and your investment professional? Are you truly getting a holistic wealth management experience? Because if you're not, then you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your spouse, and you owe it to your family to get another opinion, right? And make sure that you're getting this coordinated, approach that is going to be just crucial for the success decades ahead for your retirement.
That's great advice.
Spot on. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you'd like your copy of the Bucket Plan book that Jason wrote, we would love to get you a copy. You can just get on our website, which is Evergreen Wealth Advisors. It's ewadvisors.com. Click on schedule a call with us, and we'd love to ship you a copy of Jason's book for free. It's a fabulous read. I always tell people it's something, once you start it, usually you get 2 or 3 hours in and you finish it because you don't want to put it down.
Yeah, it's such an easy read and a compelling story. And hearing the background on it, I think honestly makes it that much more compelling and understanding the emotion that went into creating it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
very well written. Well, Jason, thanks again. Appreciate your time and sharing your thoughts on the Bucket Plan with our audience.
Great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Planning Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or if you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please visit our website. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family. Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors. PCA is an SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. Evergreen Wealth Advisors and PCA are separate non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance offered through Evergreen Wealth Advisors are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including but not limited to age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information pertaining to the registration status of PCA. Please contact the firm or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Discourse website disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the discourse statement carefully before you invest or send money.